How many of us have ever actually seen someone sweep a board game off a table in anger? Some of us. How many have seen someone throw a golf club into a pond? A couple of us. How many have ourselves, and will admit to, expressed our anger over a board game or tabletop game of some kind? Few of us, at least. It's common. It's human. My wife Becky and I play a lot of tabletop board games. Recently, a family in this congregation, who I will remain nameless so they can remain guilt-free, gave us a copy of Machikoro 2, which is a board game. It's super fun. Becky won the first game that we played, and then I won 7 in a row. She's eager to play it again. She loves that game, even though she gets just trounced at it. Conversely, she has beaten me in virtually every game of Splendor Duel that we have played. Honestly, it takes me a day or two to want to play another game of Splendor Duel, but the next time she suggests it, I will probably play it. We were talking at game night the other night about people who have a strong desire to win, shall we say, and those who are here just to have fun playing. Many of us at least, had someone in our family that it was very important to them to win. Some of us just want to have a great time and are there for the snacks and the conversation and the bad puns. And there are some who will play fiercely, who have that competitive zeal, and then when the game's over, they're able to let it go and congratulate the person who beats them or compliment the one they've just beaten. That's the goal, right? That's the winning graciously or losing graciously thing that sport and game is supposed to teach us, along with teamwork and maximal effort. Dr. Rainier Knizia has designed over 700 published games, many of which have won awards, several of which are in my collection. He's been inducted into the Gaming Hall of Fame. Dr. Knizia says, remember, when playing a game, the goal is to win, but it's the goal that's important, not the winning. We want to win. Of course we do. Winning is more fun than losing. As parents, as animals, as inheritors to the Western tradition and culture, we want to win. And maybe we've taken it a little too far. Win at all costs. Win by an ever larger margin. That's describing cancer, right? I think we're beginning to notice that, to wise up, to think maybe we don't have to win and keep winning and win by ever wider margins. Philosophically, spiritually, psychologically, I think we're beginning to notice that we should de-emphasize some of that winning, where we are seeking ways to get back into balance. And even some tabletop games are no longer only about winning. And that's not just cooperative style games where all the players win or lose together. There are now games that challenge the concept of winning itself. I'll talk about a couple of those games and the questions they ask us, and then we'll apply those questions to our religions and politics and society itself. Now, virtually all games have some kind of victory condition. A victory condition is how to win, or how we know somebody has won the game. It's the goal of the game, getting 3 in a row in tic-tac-toe, checkmating the other player's king in chess, scoring more runs or more points or more goals than your opponent in the time allotted. Those are victory conditions. There are some recent games that do not have those kind of victory conditions. One of them is called Resist. And the tagline on Board Game Geek is, lead a band of resistance fighters as they try to take back their homeland. The setting is the mid-20th century in Spain. After the Spanish Civil War, people who were still loyal to the old republic continued the armed struggle, forming resistance groups, which were usually called the Maquis. As the solo player, you're using the Maquis in your town to defeat General Franco's troops. And at first, the task is pretty easy, but the missions grow more difficult. And eventually, as the leader, you have to ask your people to risk capture or death. And since you can see their faces in the pictures on the cards, and you see their names and their occupations, it does make you feel invested in these lives. Each time you finish a mission, you have a choice. Go on another mission, potentially striking a blow for freedom, but putting more lives in peril, or decide that the risk is too great and cease your efforts, knowing that Franco will remain in power. The game Resist does not tell you if you have won or not. It provides targets with which you can challenge yourself, but it does not provide a specific victory condition. The player has to decide, just as the Spanish Maquis had to decide, is the next target worth risking even more lives? Another game that has some sort of interesting tweaks to the concept of winning is a game that I may be leading at PuppyCon here in early February. PuppyCon is a local game convention started by our own Rich and Tama here. The game is Oath, Chronicles of Empire and Exile. Cole Worley designed this game. It's set in sort of a fantasy world with rulers and nations and magicians and citizens and exiles. And each game has a well-defined goal. You rule the most sites, control the darkest secret. But an interesting thing about Oath is how the game itself changes over time. Depending on who wins, bless you, some of the game setup will remain the same and some of it will change. Some game sites may persist through 4 or 5 or more games. Other sites see action in one game and then disappear from the map, not to be seen again for a while. Similarly, some characters may appear in game after game, while other characters are literally banished, potentially not to be seen again for years. And while there is a winner determined in each game, that winner can promote some of the other players. The winner of the game will be chancellor, ruler, in the next game, and some players can come along as citizens in the next game. All other players will just be exiles. Now, exiles can still win the game, and they can earn citizenship if they want. Citizens have some advantages, but they also have some restrictions, and they can be exiled. And the chancellor has the most power, but they also have the largest task, competing with all the other players, even their quote-unquote loyal citizens. I've played quite a few games of Oath, and the folks I usually play with are often willing to play as a citizen. Even if they don't win, even if they're not the reigning chancellor, they still get some say in how the empire changes from that game to the next. For some people, the opportunity to shape the evolution of the empire is an unwritten victory condition. People share pictures on the internet of how their Oath map has changed over time and how their empires have risen and fallen and which factions and which characters have persisted or disappeared for a while and then come back to cheers from the table around, all the players like, yay, this person's back. There are players that don't like playing as citizens. For them, it is chancellor or nothing. These players seem uninterested in the long-term effects of the game. They play to win this game in front of them. And that, in my humble opinion, is the human predicament in a nutshell. We focus too much on being the sole winner of this particular game and focus too little on co-creating a beautiful, sustainable legacy. And I want to be clear, it is natural to want to win. It is natural to want to get higher rewards for the energy that we have expended. Parents want the best for their children. They typically want something better for them than they had growing up. All animals, not just humans, will overrun a habitat if there aren't predators or environmental circumstances which keep them in check and curb their growth. The will to live, to persist, to expand is a part of life. It is natural to want to win. And I think it helps if we expand what it means to win. We need to define our real world victory conditions a little bit more widely. Ideally, when I sit down, I'm not just playing a 60-minute board game to earn the title winner, although I will lord that over your head for a few weeks if I do. Ideally, we are learning skills, trying to create strategies, testing communication skills, making friends, exploring various ways of being human, and developing trust to ground years of shared endeavors in the future. It's not just one game. There's a lot going on. Ideally, we're not just making a profit, we're supplying people with goods and services, providing jobs and self-esteem, creating a community, participating in a larger ecosystem. Ideally, we're not just winning one election, we're testing ideas, proposing creative solutions, engaging the populace, demonstrating the strength and integrity of a system of governance. If we do everything we can to win one election, we may undermine the health of our governmental system. If we do everything we can to make a profit for Q1 2024, we may overlook or deny crucial actions which are necessary for financial stability of the corporation and the long-term sustainability of our planet. If we define our religion too narrowly, we may congratulate ourselves on the evident material and spiritual progress while ignoring the suffering of other living beings. I do believe that James Freeman Clarke's 5 points of the new theology presented a theology which was more inclusive and more universalist than those which came before. In game terms, Jean Calvin had victory conditions whereby only a few people, those actually selected by God, would be declared winners and accepted into heaven, and the vast majority would go elsewhere. James Freeman Clarke suggested victory conditions that were wider than that. And by today's standards, Clarke's victory conditions are still too narrow, still too focused on those folks who are making progress or had a hope of progressing. If you're backsliding, if you're merely treading water in life's difficult currents, you're not included in that 5th point. If you're not climbing Jacob's ladder onward and upward forever, you're not included in that theology, and that is a shame. And what's a real shame is those theologies persist in our Western culture today. The win conditions are core beliefs of our society. We heard the Queen song, which includes the lines, "No time for losers, 'cause we are the champions." And we heard G.K. Chesterton remind us that the fatal metaphor of progress, which means leaving things behind us, has utterly obscured the real idea of growth, which means leaving things inside us. If we combine those two, the song and that quote, we get something like, "It is a fatal mistake for a society to leave behind those called losers. Rather, let us cherish and strive for growth whereby we make room for them in our hearts, in our congregations, and our culture." In the vernacular of this service, let us incorporate all beings, all of our planet, into any victory conditions which we set for ourselves and our institutions. And I have a practical suggestion for helping this, which you've probably already come up with. After a game night, after a band competition, after an intense negotiation, let us not ask merely, did you win? But also ask things like, did you learn anything? Did you make a new friend? Did you grow in self-confidence or self-understanding? Did you make memories that will last into your lifetime? Did you learn the value of practice and preparation? How did you grow through this experience? Ultimately, may we learn to keep those questions in mind on our way to game night, and to the band competition, and to the negotiations that we have. So may we be.